They said the fire was an accident. A trash can in a penthouse study. Careless disposal of a cigarette, maybe. But I knew better. I'd been waiting for this. My Aunt Patricia tried to burn the evidence tonight. Legal documents, bank statements, the proof that would destroy her carefully constructed life. Everyone thinks this story is about revenge. About me buying her building, buying her company, watching her fall from grace. But that's not the real fire. If you've ever been told you're not good enough, if someone ever made you feel small just because they could, you'll understand this story. If it resonates, let me know in the comments. And if you want to hear more stories like this, subscribe. Because what happened tonight was 6 years in the making. The real fire? That started 6 years ago. The day I asked her for help. My name is Morgan Bennett. 6 years ago, I was nobody. At least, that's what my Aunt Patricia liked to say. I was 24, working 3 jobs, waiting tables at a diner in Queens, doing data entry from midnight to 4 a.m., cleaning offices on weekends. I lived in a studio apartment in Brooklyn that was generous to call a studio, more like a closet with a hot plate. But it was mine. I paid for it, every month, on time. Until the month I couldn't. It started with my car. The transmission died. $1,500 to fix it, money I didn't have. But I needed that car. Without it, I couldn't get to the diner, couldn't make it to the data entry office, couldn't pay rent. I tried everything. Asked my manager for advance on my paycheck, applied for every credit card, got denied by all of them. Not enough credit history, too much debt. I had one option left. Family. My Aunt Patricia. Patricia Ashford. Married to money. Never worked a day in her life. Lived in a penthouse in Manhattan with a view of Central Park. We weren't close. She was my mother's sister. But they hadn't spoken in years. Some family drama I never fully understood. Something about my grandmother's will. About Patricia getting everything and my mom getting nothing. But Patricia was family, and I was desperate. I called her on a Tuesday afternoon. My hands were shaking. Patricia? It's Morgan Bennett. Morgan? Her voice was surprised. Not pleased, just surprised. Well, this is unexpected. I know. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need help. Silence. Long enough that I thought she'd hung up. Help, she repeated. The word sounded foreign in her mouth. What kind of help? I need to borrow $2,000, just for a month. My car broke down and I need it for work. I can pay you back by $2,000. She laughed, sharp, cutting. For a car. Darling, if you can't afford to maintain a vehicle, perhaps you shouldn't own one. My face burned. I can afford it. I just need time. The repair shop wants cash up front. And you're calling me because you're family. Another laugh. Family, right. How convenient that you remember we're family when you need money. I'll pay you back, I said. My voice was smaller now, pleading. With interest, whatever you want. Whatever I want, Patricia repeated. Here's what I want, Morgan. I want you to understand something. This is why you'll never make it. This is why people like you stay where you are, because you don't understand how money works. I bit my lip, tasted blood. People like me? I asked quietly. Working class, paycheck to paycheck. You think hard work is enough. It's not. Success requires planning, discipline, vision, things you clearly lack. So you won't help me? I didn't say that, Patricia said. Her tone shifted, became sweet, poisonous. I'll lend you the money, but you're going to learn from this. Every payment you make, you're going to remember that I saved you. That without me, you'd be nothing. My hands clenched into fists. Fine. Come to my building tomorrow, 10 a.m. Don't be late. And Morgan, Dress appropriately. The doorman has standards." She hung up. I sat there, phone in my hand, staring at nothing. Something inside me shifted that day. Something cold, something sharp. I would never beg again. The next morning, I took the subway to Manhattan, wore my nicest outfit, a black dress I'd bought at a thrift store, shoes that pinched my feet but looked expensive. Patricia's building was everything I wasn't. Glass and marble, doorman in a suit, elevator that required a key card. The doorman looked at me like I was lost. "I'm here to see Patricia Ashford," I said. He raised an eyebrow, checked a list, grudgingly waved me through. The elevator opened directly into Patricia's penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows, white furniture, art on the walls that probably cost more than I'd make in 10 years. Patricia was sitting on a cream-colored sofa, crystal glass in hand, already drinking at 10 a.m. "Morgan," she said, looked me up and down. "That dress, is that Target?" "Thrift store," I said. She smiled. "Of course it is." She stood, walked to a desk, pulled out a checkbook, wrote slowly, deliberately, making me wait. When she finally handed me the check, she held on to it for a moment, made me pull. $2,000, she said. "You have 3 months. Interest is 10%. That's how the real world works, darling. Nothing is free." I took the check. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," Patricia said. "Just remember this moment. The next time you think you can make it on your own, remember who saved you." I left without another word. On the subway ride home, I looked at that check. $2,000, written in her perfect handwriting. And I made a promise to myself. I would pay her back, every penny, with interest, and then I would never speak to her again. But that's not what happened. What happened was so much better. I paid Patricia back in exactly 3 months. 67 days, actually. I picked up extra shifts, sold everything I didn't need, lived on ramen and peanut butter, and I sent her a check for $2,200, the loan plus interest. She never acknowledged it. No call, no text, nothing. But I didn't care, because something had changed in those 3 months. I'd started learning about real estate. It started small. YouTube videos, library books, free online courses. I learned about property investment, flipping houses, commercial real estate, tax liens, foreclosures. I learned that real estate wasn't about having money. It was about understanding leverage, about seeing value where others didn't. And I was good at it. Really good. 6 months after paying Patricia back, I bought my first property. A tiny apartment in the Bronx. Foreclosure sale. $10,000 down. I'd saved every penny. It needed work, a lot of work. I did most of it myself. Painted, cleaned, fixed the plumbing with YouTube tutorials. 3 months later, I sold it for $40,000. I took that money and bought 2 more properties. Within a year, I had 5. I quit the diner, quit the data entry job, focused full-time on real estate. By year 2, I had 10 properties. By year 3, 20. I wasn't rich, not yet, but I was building something real. And Patricia, she had no idea. We saw each other occasionally. Family gatherings, holidays, the events my mother dragged me to even though I didn't want to go. Patricia always had something to say. "Still playing real estate agent?" she'd ask, loud enough for everyone to hear. Or, "How's your little property hobby going, dear?" Or my favorite, "Be careful, Morgan. People who reach too high usually fall hard." Her friends would laugh, high-pitched, performative. I would smile, nod, say nothing. But inside, I was counting down, because I knew something Patricia didn't. I was winning. By year 4, I had enough. Enough properties, enough cash flow, enough leverage. I started looking at bigger deals. commercial buildings, multi-unit complexes. And then I saw it. A luxury high-rise in Manhattan, 35 floors, prime location. The previous owner was desperate to sell. Market downturn, bad investments, needed cash fast. The building was listed at $20 million. I looked at the address, looked at the listing photos, and I realized it was Patricia's building. The place where she'd handed me that check 5 years ago, where she'd looked at my thrift store dress and smiled, where she'd told me I'd never make it. I sat in my office, staring at that listing. My financial advisor called. "Morgan, this is a huge risk. You'd be leveraging everything. If it doesn't work out, it'll work out," I said. "Are you sure? Because if, make the offer." 3 weeks later, I closed on the building. $20 million. I owned it. Every apartment, every floor, every marble tile in that lobby, including Patricia's penthouse. The day the deed transferred, I sat in my car outside the building, just sat there, looking up at it. My building. I'd gone from begging for $2,000 to owning a $20 million property, and Patricia had no idea. I decided to tell her in person. The next morning, I dressed carefully. Black blazer, expensive heels, hair perfect. I walked into that lobby like I owned it. Because I did. Patricia was there, of course she was, lounging on one of the leather sofas with her friends, same women who'd laughed at me for years. Crystal glasses, designer handbags, laughter that echoed off marble. Patricia saw me first. Her eyes narrowed. Then she smiled. That smile. "Well, well," she called out, loud. "Look who's pretending again." Her friends turned, looked at me, smirked. "Sweetheart," Patricia continued, "this building charges rent. You sure you're not lost?" More laughter. I kept walking, straight to the reception desk. Mr. Chen, the building manager, was there. He saw me and his eyes went wide. He'd gotten my email that morning, knew who I was now. He straightened his tie, came around the desk. "Miss Bennett," he said, loud and clear. "Welcome home." The laughter stopped. Patricia blinked. "What did you just call her?" Mr. Chen turned politely. "I said welcome home, Miss Bennett. Her ownership transfer was finalized this morning." "Ownership?" Patricia's voice cracked. "What ownership?" I turned slowly, looked at my aunt, at her friends, at their confused, frozen faces. "Oh," I said softly. "I thought you knew. I bought the building last week." Patricia's crystal glass slipped from her fingers, shattered on the marble floor, red wine spreading like blood. "You... what?" "I bought the building," I repeated, slower, like I was talking to a child. "All of it. Every floor. Including your penthouse." Her mouth opened. No sound came out. One of her friends gasped. "Patricia, is she serious?" Patricia was staring at me, face pale, hands shaking. I smiled. "You should be careful what you say in my building, Patricia. The walls have a funny way of remembering things." I turned to Mr. Chen. "I'd like to see the renovations you mentioned." "Of course, Miss Bennett. Right this way." I walked to the elevator, pressed the button. Behind me, I heard Patricia's voice, shaky, desperate. Morgan, wait. We should talk about..." The elevator doors closed. I leaned against the wall, alone, and laughed. Not loud, not triumphant, just relieved. It was done. That should have been enough. That moment should have been the end of it. But 2 years passed, and Patricia didn't leave. Couldn't leave, because leaving would mean admitting defeat. So she stayed, paid her rent, on time, every month. And I rebuilt the entire building, made it profitable, increased the value. Every renovation was a reminder, every improvement, every upgrade. This was mine, not hers. Then, 6 months ago, Patricia threw a charity gala. The invitation arrived at my office, embossed in gold. You are cordially invited to the annual Ashford Foundation Charity Gala. Cocktail attire, $500 per plate. I stared at that invitation for a long time. My assistant, Rebecca, leaned in. Are you going? I don't know. She probably doesn't think you will. I looked up. What? She probably sent it to be polite. Expects you to decline. Expects you to know your place. I smiled. Then I should definitely go. The gala was at the Plaza. Ballroom full of Manhattan's elite, designer gowns, tuxedos, champagne towers. I wore black. Simple. Elegant. Expensive. When I walked in, heads turned. Not because of the dress. Because they knew who I was. The girl who bought her aunt's building. The story that had spread through every dinner party, every charity event. Patricia was near the stage. Gold gown, diamonds at her throat, surrounded by admirers. She saw me, and for just a second, her mask slipped. Fear, anger, something ugly. Then she smiled, forced, fake, and turned away. The night went on. Speeches, auctions, polite applause. Then Patricia took the stage. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, for supporting this wonderful cause. She talked about sacrifice, about giving back, about hard work, words she'd never lived. Near the end of her speech, she gestured toward me. And of course, we're honored to have my dear niece here tonight, Miss Morgan Bennett. Her recent success is a reminder that fortune favors the bold. Polite applause. Patricia smiled, satisfied. She expected me to nod, to wave, to stay in my seat like a good little niece. I stood up. Patricia's smile faltered. Morgan, this isn't the time for... I walked toward the stage, heels clicking on marble, every eye on me. I just wanted to say something, I said. Patricia's hand tightened on the microphone. Morgan, I took it from her hand, turned to the audience. The room went silent. You're right, Patricia, I said. Fortune does favor the bold, but it also remembers kindness. It remembers who helped you when you were down, who believed in you when no one else did. I paused. Let that sink in. 6 years ago, I asked my aunt for help, for $2,000. I needed it desperately, and she gave it to me. But she made sure I understood that I was nothing without her, that people like me don't succeed. Patricia's face went pale. I used to think success was about proving people wrong, I continued, about showing them they were mistaken. But standing here tonight, I realized something different. I looked directly at Patricia. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about rising without stepping on people to do it. It's about building something real instead of inheriting something fake. The room was completely still. So to everyone who ever doubted me, who laughed at me, who told me I didn't belong, thank you. Because you taught me that the only approval I ever needed was my own. I handed the microphone back to Patricia. Her hands were shaking. Her carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the rage in her eyes. I walked off that stage to genuine applause, not polite, real. And Patricia stood there, frozen, her speech forgotten. Someone filmed it, posted it online. By morning, it had 1 million views. The most graceful power move of the year, the comments said. This is how you win without being cruel. Patricia who? After the gala, things moved fast. Investors started asking questions about Patricia, about Lawson Holdings, her family company, about where the money actually came from. Turns out, Patricia's success was built on lies, Fake financial reports, inflated assets, money that didn't exist. When people started looking closer, it all fell apart. Partners pulled out, clients left, the board called for an audit. 3 months ago, Lawson Holdings filed for bankruptcy. I got the call from my lawyer on a Tuesday. Morgan, Lawson Holdings is being liquidated, assets are being sold, and you have first right of refusal on the company. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear. What? You're the primary creditor. You have the option to buy the company, become the majority shareholder. How much? He told me. I could afford it, easily. But did I want to? Did I want to become the owner of Patricia's family legacy, the company she'd spent her entire life pretending to run? I thought about it for 3 days, and then I said yes. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted closure. I sent Patricia a formal notice. Professional. No gloating. Dear Patricia, effective immediately, I am the majority shareholder of Lawson Holdings. This is not personal. This is business. Morgan Bennett. She never replied. Last week, a fraud investigation was launched. Federal. Serious. Someone had been embezzling from Lawson Holdings for years, falsifying documents, hiding money offshore. The evidence pointed to Patricia. I knew she'd panic, knew she'd try to cover her tracks. I just didn't know when. Tonight, I was at the building for a late meeting, reviewing renovation plans for the lobby. At 11:47 p.m., the fire alarm went off. I knew immediately, knew it was Patricia's unit. I walked outside, calm, while everyone else panicked. And I watched the fire trucks arrive, watched the firefighters rush in, watched Patricia try to push past security, screaming about her files. She saw me, standing there, arms crossed. "You," she hissed. "You did this." I shook my head. "No, Patricia. You did this to yourself." The fire was small, contained quickly, but the firefighters found what was left. Legal documents, bank statements, all half-burned in a trash can. Evidence of fraud, evidence of embezzlement. Everything Patricia had tried to destroy. Police arrived 20 minutes later. Patricia sat on the curb, wrapped in a blanket, mascara running down her face, hands trembling. An officer approached with questions. I watched from across the street, not with satisfaction, not with anger, just with peace. One of the firefighters came over, older man, kind eyes. "You're the owner?" he asked. "Yes." "You knew she'd do this." "I suspected." "She could have burned down the whole building." "I know," I said quietly. "But that's the difference between us. I build things. She destroys them." He nodded. "You pressing charges?" "I don't need to," I said. "You found what you needed. The rest will handle itself." I looked up at the building. My building. 35 floors, 200 units. Worth $40 million now. 6 years ago, I couldn't afford to fix my car. "You know what's funny?" I said. The firefighter waited. 6 years ago, I would have done anything to make her proud of me, to prove I belonged in her world. And now? Now I realize I was never trying to enter her world. I was building my own.
That was Morgan Bennett. I'm Dean Mitchell, Station 47. You know, people love to talk about burning bridges, about cutting toxic people out of your life, walking away from those who hurt you. But here's what I've learned in 18 years of fighting fires. Sometimes the people who hurt you most will burn their own bridges trying to stop you from succeeding. Morgan didn't destroy Patricia. Patricia destroyed herself. Years of inherited privilege, fake success, and cruelty finally caught up with her. And when it did, she literally tried to burn the evidence. But Morgan, she built something real, dollar by dollar, property by property, without stepping on anyone to do it. That's the difference between earned success and inherited privilege. One lasts. The other eventually burns. Patricia spent years telling Morgan she'd never make it, that she didn't belong, that people like her don't succeed. And Morgan proved her wrong in the quietest, most devastating way possible. She didn't just succeed, she bought the building, she bought the company, she became everything Patricia said she couldn't be, but more importantly, she did it with grace. without becoming the person who hurt her. If someone ever made you feel small, if they laughed at your dreams or told you that you didn't belong, listen to me. You don't have to burn them down to rise. You don't have to become cruel to be strong. You just have to keep building, keep climbing, keep proving to yourself that their doubt was never the truth. And when they finally realize what you've become, when they're standing in the ashes of the bridges they burned themselves, you won't need revenge. You'll just need peace. If Morgan's story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear this. And if you want more stories from Station 47, hit subscribe. Stay safe out there.